Welcome to Disruption Blueprint. Today's conversation sits right at the intersection of AI, advisor productivity, and the future enterprise value of wealth management firms. I'm joined by Mark Gilbert, co-founder and CEO of Zocks, and now one of RFG's board members, following our recent partnership and participation in Zocks Series B capital raise. What makes this conversation so important is that we're moving far beyond AI as a simple note-taking tool. We're talking about how firms leverage data, automation, and intelligence to scale advisor capacity, deepen client relationships, and create a more connected operating system for the modern advisory business. If you're thinking about growth, succession, advisor efficiency, or how AI is reshaping the competitive landscape for RIAs, this episode is packed with practical insights on where the industry is headed next. Are you ready for it? Let's jump in.
Welcome to Disruption Blueprint with Shannon Spotswood from RFG Advisory. In this podcast, we help advisors grow their net worth, build their businesses, and maximize their independence. We've built an award-winning platform with innovative technology, comprehensive service, and a team of individuals who are experts in their field to serve advisors. Join us for this journey where we explore everything that has to do with running an independent advisor practice as we bring together successful advisors, industry experts, and innovative minds who are on the bleeding edge to challenge the status quo, foster new ideas, and create a path for advisors to unleash their growth potential. Now, on to the show.
Welcome to Disruption Blueprint. I have been so looking forward to this conversation. I am joined in studio remotely by Mark Gilbert, the co-founder and CEO of Zocks. Mark, welcome to Disruption Blueprint.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Shannon. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, we just announced a few weeks ago a partnership between our two firms. You've joined RFG's board. We were allowed to participate in your Series B round. And this is something really, I feel like you and I, when we very first met, had this immediate connection about the future of the industry and where we are headed. So, it was abundantly clear to me then that AI was going to completely shift the landscape for advisors, that note-taking was just, not even the first inning. It was like the pregame warm-up. So tell us a little bit about where you are, like what is Zocks and what does the future look like?
Yeah, I appreciate that. We are, we're growing very quickly. We launched just over 2 years ago, which seems in some ways like yesterday and in other ways like 20 years ago. It's been moving very, very quickly. So, as you mentioned, when we initially started, a lot of the value was really around saving advisors time, right? Both in kind of preparing for meetings and taking notes and everything else. From the beginning, we see AI just, exactly as you were saying. I think, we were pretty eye to eye on this. Is changing quite a lot in the industry. And so, a lot has shifted even in the last year and the last 6 months, but we, really started doing a lot of the more time intensive follow-ups for advisors and their teams last year. So things like filling out the planning systems, getting data into the other systems. So not just like written notes, but actually like, what we call structured data, right? Filling out all of these tables and information that you need to really like plan for your clients. And so that was a huge step for us, I would say, around last summer. Late last year, we started really taking that data and opening it up at the firm level, so that you can really understand, as what are our advisors doing? What are our clients needing from us? And really the goal of that is how to move to more of an anticipating client needs versus sitting in this like annual review cycle, right? And, advisors obviously want to meet with clients, and that's a great thing. The more they can reach out at the right time with the right notes and really anticipate that, that's been super impactful for us. And then just I guess a month and a half ago, we launched basically a whole new pack of what we call interfaces. So think of those as APIs. And a big one of that was the MCP interface, which allows us to communicate with other AI systems. And that we thought that was going to be a big deal. It has been a bigger deal than we thought it was going to be a big deal, which has been awesome. But, at a high level, I think the two huge things we've seen with that, one is we're seeing a lot of other systems come out with these interfaces. And so what it allows you to do is really, from any system, start to ask questions, do things in a very natural way, and you'll start to see all the different systems adjust. And then with such a rapid, innovation speed coming out of the core AI systems, like the open AIs and the Anthropics of the world, we've seen people hook it up to Claude and just start to do amazing things, right? Like just really amazing things. And so every time, those systems get better, we get better. And then because we can get the context of the client, into those systems, it's almost like, unimaginable options. And I think for anyone who's seen those demos, it's frankly kind of unreal. Like even when I first saw them and we were staring at this for a long time, it really is kind of mind blowing how much you can now do. And it's awesome, right? Like at the end of the day, we think and we're already starting to see this, right? Like the amount of clients an advisor can serve is going up. They frankly can offer better service, even with handling more people, which is amazing. Like they can get very detailed, personalized follow-ups to them very, very quickly. And then, the investments in the data systems and in the underlying platforms that, some firms have been making are really lighting up. Like there's just amazing things you can do. So it's awesome.
One thing that is standing out to me is how collaborative Anthropic and OpenAI are actually being in the creation of this brave new world. Does that surprise you given your long track record in tech?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would agree with that. I hadn't really thought of it that way. I think in general in the industry, like I've been in tech for a while, I'll just say, like my entire career.
A few decades.
You can guess how long that is. More than 3 years. But yeah, like it is more, I would say there's a general energy, right? Just around like the excitement of what can happen and what's going on. And with that, I would agree. Like they've been very open, very collaborative, interactive, very helpful for us for sure. You know what I mean? Like just very, like giving us an idea of where they're spending their time, where they think the hard challenges are going to be, like what stuff they're covering already. And it's been great. Like it's just to think that, 2 to 3 years ago, almost none of this really existed in any way is frankly almost unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. It really is truly unbelievable. So, just stepping back into launching your MCP, connecting these client conversations data, it just points over and over and over and over again to the power of data and the way that firms are thinking about their data strategy. What do those conversations look like for you? Obviously, firms, large, small, are all grappling with these questions. How are you helping to steer that investment and that just posture around data as a strategic asset?
Yeah, I think, at a high level, the firms that have been investing in their data systems are now able to benefit from that just straight out, right? Like it's like, frankly, AI without data is not super useful. And so you can see that in the firms that have both been, I would say, from a technical level investing and also from a strategic level understanding the value of it, and really kind of like, owning and controlling their data. One of our kind of premises of the company is that, a firm, and the clients own all of their data. And that has really helped where, like we've gone in, into a set of firms that I would say are quite leading, and just the impact right away. It's like you're unleashing the power of it, right? Like I think people would think about it and talk about it before, but it was almost a little removed, and all of a sudden it's very clear, of frankly the power of it. The other thing I would say is there's a lot of firms that haven't, and there's frankly a lot of smaller firms and especially newer ones, right, that don't necessarily have a lot of data. The interesting thing is AI systems have been able to help capture that data, like help capture and start to build it as well. But it is like you can definitely see a pattern where the firms that have like what we would call a good data architecture, data strategy, and data posture are able to really leverage AI. And frankly, it which is awesome. It really helps advisors very quickly, right? Like it's not this theoretical project that everyone's working on for 3 years that maybe at the end of the 3 years things will get a little easier. Like advisors see the value right away. And it's not just like, as I was saying, and early, it starts off often with like kind of a productivity time saving, but it quickly turns into, better client service, frankly, prospects converting quicker, being able to intake quicker, all of the things that like are good for everyone. But I think in the industry, this isn't very surprising to say now, but data as a strategic asset for firms is just going to increase and increase. Do you have it? Is it accurate?
Yeah. One of the benefits I feel like that we're definitely realizing and experiencing in real time is having invested in a data lake, now more than 2+ years ago. This concept of a data architecture has been something we've talked about for a long time, is that it allows for us, like the partnership with you made so much sense. It allows for us to go a lot faster because you've already gone through kind of the indoctrination of what does it mean? How do you ingest data? How do those APIs work? How do you keep everything clean? Like how do you structure it, organize it? It is something that requires some runway. It requires some, building of muscle to be able to then direct that data in ways that are helpful and unlocking, of time, in your words, for the advisor.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Like I think, having a bit of exactly as you were saying, runway, a little experience with it is very helpful. And even for firms, I would say that have been capturing data and been thoughtful about it and maybe didn't get it the exact way they thought, like the exact way they wanted, and they've been adjusting, just that practice of doing it. Like the nice thing with AI is it's been fairly quick to shift that if they need to, but it's very different going into someone who's thinking about data and like whenever they see new systems come in, new whatever, they think more strategically like, hey, what's valuable for us, what's most important for us so we can drive the business more, so we can serve clients more. And I would say the firms that are doing that and really using it to help advisors are just frankly, they're just pulling ahead. Like it is very apparent, and you'll know as you talk with advisors, as you know very well, it matters a lot to them as they're looking around at kind of like what systems to use, what firms to work with, all of those things. The data and the AI systems matter like a lot to them. It was honestly even a little surprising to me as we chatted with some of them on how quickly they've been, that's turned into a key, excuse the pun, but data point for them as they're trying to think of like, what to do.
We were having an on-site with a handful of our third-party recruiter partners here in Birmingham a couple of weeks ago, and we asked this question very specifically. It's interesting that you flag it. They said it's, just within the last couple of months, it is now in the top 5 questions that advisors are asking around what is the firm's posture on AI? What is their future strategy? How is it being unleashed? Certainly there's good reason for that. At RFG, we're seeing, really out of the gate, 10 to 15 hours a week being unlocked for those advisors that are fully adopting Zocks. I believe we're in the top of the first inning here of all the cool stuff that we're building, but it is a fundamental business shift when you're unlocking this advisor time, to your point, serve more households, win more business, have greater impact, or quite honestly, like spend more time hanging out at home and playing around. So when you all talk about this, how many conversations are you having that is like, where does the time go? Like, what do you do with it? What are advisors thinking about it? How, because I'm sure in your, from your seat, that is a question that's being asked.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny because I think in the first year after we launched, a lot of it was just almost this like thankful relaxation of like, I can sleep at night. I'm not worried about not feeling, like everyone was just kind of getting used to the fact that it was there. And then, a year in, exactly as you said, people are starting to get pretty thoughtful and strategic on what they're doing with that time, right? And some of it, like we know, just, a lot of advisors didn't have enough time, and especially if their staff was a little light for their client base, if it was growing quickly, like they were just not feeling like they were keeping up with things. And so they were burning Saturdays, Thursdays very late, all those things. So like getting that back is frankly just helpful. And everyone knows like if you're a little bit more balanced, I would say as you're working with that, you're in a better mood with clients, you're more kind of observant and everything with that too. So there's a lot of just like frankly getting some time back in an industry that is frankly, does not have enough advisors and is pretty heavily worked. I'll say overworked. Now what we see is, a few things. We definitely see a lot of people starting to work with, and reach out to a little bit more proactively, like what we would call, their kind of tier 2, tier 3 clients. So clients that they've worked with and for different reasons, but are not really like, kind of one of their primary, asset planning clients. We see a lot of that. We see people, frankly, growing their business that way. We had someone recently just, frankly, go into Zocks and query, like, tell me any of my clients that don't have enough insurance to cover their mortgage if something was to happen. And just reached out to 14 people, and 12 of 14 in a week. And like to the client, like they signed up and got more insurance. This person sells insurance, so they were ecstatic about it. But it's also very helpful for the client, because if you don't have enough, like, that's exactly what you want to know and the exact type of thing you want to get fixed. So we see that. We've seen some people, more than some, start to use or start to offer other services, I would say, in addition to the assets under management services. So start to get a little deeper into estate planning, a little deeper into a few other areas like tax and things like that to help out. It's been great for them because it frankly draws more revenue. Their clients, again, like it because, I've done this recently where I've had to go, through the estate planning process again. And, even when they hand it off nicely, you're still, reconfirming your kids' names and all these things to another person and all that. And so by essentially having, a single advisor, your advisor be really the quarterback, if you will, through these processes, it's been super helpful. So we see that a lot. And then with the marketing, we just see some people, frankly, spend more time on marketing in front of the funnel and then ultimately just end up with more households, and they're happy with that too. And so you see all of it. I think the other thing that's been really neat is where you have people who have some, even if it's a small team, like an associate or some assistants, they're able to scale even more, right? Because the advisor, who's often loves chatting with clients and engaging with them, and maybe doesn't love, coming back and typing everything into computers for a long time so their team can get going, right? Like, they can basically just stay out there, if you will, on the field, with the clients, doing stuff all the time, and their team is able to really just, accelerate them. So almost a bit of everything, but you can see a lot of the different capabilities. And I think, as you said, that is still very early. I think what we're seeing is people doing what they used to be doing, but in an accelerated way. And I think you are starting to see a bit of the next phase, which is more services offered, maybe going a little earlier with some clients, right? A little younger in career that they think could be great clients over time. It's very hard in, I'll say, the old world to really help and serve those people well, but it's getting a little bit more, a little easier, frankly, with AI.
So let's just stay there, because I do think this is one of the most exciting builds that we're working on, which is just business intelligence and helping advisors connect the dots between their time, creating enterprise value, building those multi-generational relationships. There was such a I call it swivel chair fatigue. You're just logging into all these different systems, trying to, keep in your mind how it all fits together. So as Zocks continues to evolve, what we've built at RFG is called Click One, which is really our Click One command center. And it stemmed from this idea of, one, I love where AI is going to help us to eliminate clicks. Two, it's this notion of click once, right? We're going to be moving into this Click One environment. But I think it's so interesting to think about where does Zocks begin and the operating system end, and where does Zocks become the operating system? We obviously have lived through the SaaS apocalypse in the stock market a couple months ago. So I asked you this question. I love to hear your perspective on it. Are we building a tool or are we building an infrastructure? When you think about just this ecosystem being created, what does it evolve into? Where does the operating system end? Where does Zocks begin?
Yeah, it's interesting. So we are focused our goal is essentially advisors and their teams to not have to touch the keyboard. And it's a little aspirational, but that's essentially where we want to get, right? So they're working with clients, they're saying what they need to do and what they want to do, and ideally the system is helping them. So we really focus on, 3 big areas, where can we save them time? What is the data that they or the firm needs to operate? Like, how do we, capture that and grab through it? And then essentially, how do we help with what we think of as workflows, right? Yeah. So that can be like account opening, money movement, all of those types of things. We don't really touch what I would call the back office at all, right? So we integrate with other systems. One of our kind of like core fundamentals has been to, there's a lot of systems out there today. Those systems don't always communicate with each other as much as advisors would want. And so we're able to use AI to do a lot of that. And so that's really where we're sitting, right? Is as much as we can drive and do those types of things. As you look across the industry, we see some people with fairly good, what I would call, or, your words, like operating systems underneath. Those are easier to fill out. They're easier to drive. They're easier to push around. The reality is, I think, as you get more and more of that like automated or accelerated, and as you get more and more data on your clients, the underlying systems, if you will be even more important, because if they're running well, right, everything flows. If you have a bunch of systems that frankly like print out paper and have humans reviewing the paper and checking it off and everything else, and those exist more than a lot of people probably think in the back offices of the industry, it's harder. And so we're really about, like, what can we do for the advisor? What data does the advisor and their team need? What data does the firm need? And that data, like, I'll say this and I'll say this again, I'm sure, like every month for the next 2 years, but I think a lot of people look at AI initially as like really a productivity saver, and it is. It's a huge impact there, like to the amount of hours returned. But the data, the ability to capture data and the ability to analyze data is just phenomenal, right? Like, we're going to be able to see things. Like, firms are going to be able to understand how they operate, how they're like what their clients want, how their best advisors are operating, how their new advisors are operating, and what that delta is, in ways that has just been totally opaque before. So it's going to change everything, and it's going to be pretty impactful as an understatement.
It is so cool. I could live like out there in the future frontier. I'm going to ask you about the advisor of the future as we wrap up. But it is when you imagine, this power of truly understanding what is my next best action, like how am I building my business? What are the direct contributors to enterprise value? We've always had these very robust benchmarking studies in the industry, but it's been so hard to put it into practice. Like you all these stats, but it's like, well, how do I become, a more either profitable or faster grower or all these different metrics? How do I do this? And now we're going to see it very cleanly. And Fidelity has this fantastic study that I think is going to be, a nut that you're going to crack here. I think we're going to crack this by the end of the year, where they show an average advisor's book is 60% high value clients, defined by the advisor as whatever is their revenue threshold, and then 40% low value, which you would expect. And that's actually an indication of health, right? You've got a lower tier. The problem is their time follows that exact same allocation. I'm spending 60% with my high value and 40% when the business model needs to be 80% high value, 20% of the lower tier, but the lower tier is getting exactly what they need. And so I think like cracking that code and showing it to advisors very plainly is going to completely change how they structure their day, how they build their teams, like what they're working on.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. There's I think a lot of the way that advisors offer services today, how they spend time, is very much gated on exactly that, just like what can they afford time-wise, right? And so in order to offer better service to clients, they just have to spend more time with them. There's almost no alternative right before AI. And what's happening now is you start to see some of these things, like there are situations where clients would actually prefer to work with AI, right? Like, and that's not like a slag on the advisor at all. It's just like, hey, if you need my social security number or 3 other data points, maybe it's not secure to email these to you or something else, like I'm happy to talk to an AI system or you to reach out, or, sometimes I just want to ask very basic questions about what's going on in whatever my accounts, or I have a simple scenario, and getting something faster is better than booking an appointment, or better, like there's just all these scenarios. And so again, like, I think you're going to see, and I agree, I think we're going to crack this in the next 6 to 9 months. You're going to see a lot of these services from the like ultra high net worth go all the way down to high net worth to, like millionaires, like, mass affluent the way down. You're going to see a lot of people who are probably, I'll say, earlier in their savings journey, engage more with, AI-based systems that are actually able to help them quite a lot. And I don't think that's either or. That's the whole point, right? Like I think people hit a threshold where it's like, oh, now I have a real thing. I really want to talk to someone about it. And we have a lot of people, it's same as we work with our clients, where sometimes the advisors just want to talk to people because they're like, I just want to talk to someone to make sure I understand this and make sure I got it all. Other things they can kind of automate and get through. And, we see like, I have two boys who are no longer young, but, still fairly young, and they all have, they have Robinhood accounts. That's what they're using. That's what they do. And they're used to that. And they I think what we see is a lot of the advisors want to and are going to need to, a lot of the firms start to serve that generation more and kind of meet them where they want to be. And that's not I think 15 years ago, we all went through the robo-advisors are going to take over advisors. That's not going to be what happens. What's going to happen is a set of services, I think, that are very, those services are either going to be 80 or 90% AI based, and that's totally fine, right? And then as you kind of get a little bit farther in your journey, you have more life events, you have more critical decisions to make, as an adult or maybe as a parent. That's where you're going to have more and more engagement with your advisor, but you're going to want that to feel very kind of consistent. And I agree, like what you're going to see is, advisors ideally spending the time with the clients that need the time and need the services that frankly, need humans and they really want to get pulled through a situation or get advice on. And other ones will happily engage, 80-20 with AI systems. And that's totally fine given where they are. And that's going to happen fairly quickly. And, I think it's going to, frankly, for a lot of firms is going to turn everything on its head, which is going to be bit of a challenge to get through, but we'll get through it.
So fun. Okay, so one of my favorite soapboxes for the last 10 years is, I think one of the biggest barriers to exit to independence, RFG being a platform serving independent advisors, is the fear, pain, suffering, PTSD associated with a transition. So, every advisor has either lived through it or heard about it enough that is what blocks them from making a move. And, some of the cool work that we're doing together is reimagining, as you said, leveraging voice and AI in order to remove that barrier to exit and help to transition accounts much more efficiently, whether it's in bulk when you're changing firms or just onboarding new households, new families. The legacy firms are held together by duct tape and chicken wire. Everyone in this industry has always approached this with I have to solve it for everyone. I can't just solve for one custodian. I have to have this universal account opening tool. We're taking a stick of dynamite to that. And, I'm just going to go ahead and plant a flag. You have aspirational about voice being used. I have aspirations about an advisor being able to move their entire book of business. And I've said 30 days before AI, so now I want to take it down to 7. What do you think about this as a brave frontier for advisors?
Yeah, I think it's I think it's first of all a very top of mind problem for a lot of advisors and considerations. I 100% agree with that. There is a very large amount of administrative work that just goes into this. And frankly, not only is the work painful, but it's scary for the advisors, right? It's scary. And frankly, they're scared because they're worried the clients are going to have a bad experience. I think, without getting too specific, I think what's going to happen very quickly is there are custodians now, right, that are, I would say, more leading and opening up APIs and doing all of these things. And you're going to start to see very quickly being able to move, if not all the assets, the majority of them over in a fairly smooth way, right, for advisors. Frankly, removing a lot of the angst for it. The other interesting thing with AI, which has just not really been that feasible before, it's been possible, but not really feasible, is that we can go in and fill out PDFs, right? And so if someone is moving maybe an account that's not the most common account or having to do something that's not the most common action, right? We can actually fall back if we don't have direct APIs into essentially digital paper. And because we can understand and process paper, understand documents, fill out documents, and do all of those things, that is still a lot faster than having someone fill out PDFs and send around e-signatures, if you will. And so I think you're going to see that move very quickly. I won't make a call on how long it's going to take to move things over. You know that better than I do. But I do think it'll actually be fairly quick for the vast majority. And I think importantly for the long tail, of, very specific account types, maybe in the corners and stuff, it'll actually still be very smooth. And I think if people knew now it was going to be a certain number of days, but they knew with high reliability it was going to be there and they didn't have to kind of poke the system all the time, they would actually probably be fine with that. So that's really, I think, the big goal, right? Is that we move a lot of the big stuff quickly.
Yeah.
And that, again, a lot of administrative effort just going into that is big. And that we still have a fallback that works, which again, AI can do because of, documents, PDFs, digital signatures, and all of these things.
It's so exciting. All right. So from your vantage point, your seat as CEO, obviously we're in a fintech world. There are so many companies on Kitsis's map. There's so many shiny objects that I'm sure, advisors and firms like mine, put in front of you. How do you stay anchored around your roadmap of what you're developing, where you direct your talent?
Yeah, that's a great question, as you'd imagine, especially in AI. I think if you just read all the AI newsletters, it would burn your entire day, much less build anything. So, for us, we anchor very heavily with advisors. We spend a lot of time with advisors. Most of the founding team of Zocks are actually enterprise people. I think we understand enterprises fairly well, just, from all of our experience. And one of the things when we started the company, because frankly, we've seen some enterprise software over time kind of get off the rails where it's doing what enterprises want, but isn't really easy to use or super valuable to the end user. So we've been very focused on advisors. We sell and continue to sell, and work with 1, 2, 3 person advisory shops, and seeing their problems every day. They still walk us through what they do sometimes. And you're just like, oh my gosh,
right. How is that possible?
Why are we still doing this? Yeah. And so the more we can help there. So at the end of the day, it really goes down to wherever we can remove administrative burden for them is huge. Wherever we can help, we have this capability, that's in beta right now where you can query across all of your clients and ask different things and basically get listed. It's quite powerful. A lot of that came from them, right? It was just hey, now that I have this, could I figure out who's in this situation? And, one of the interesting things for us is almost always if there's something that's valuable for the advisor, so doing these queries across their book of business, opening an account for the advisor, any of these types of things, almost always, and then when I say almost, I think actually always, the firm sees value as well, right? Yeah. They're like, yep, I also want to do that. I also want to move money. I also want to know what the heck's going on with the workflows, right? I also want to be able to query across everyone and understand what's going on. And so that's been a very big anchor for us. And we have gotten pulled into a number of different areas where people have asked us to do a lot of different work in the back office or different other things. And this North Star of really helping the advisors be more productive and helping them grow their business, frankly, build the business that they want to build, spending the time that they want to be spending, which mostly is with their clients. That has worked very well, right? And that has just, continued to work. And I think we've gotten a lot of very positive feedback from clients about it as well. So they know that every, month, 3 months, 6 months, the system just starts to do. And some of the things are really fast. Some of the things, with AI take us even, I'll say 3 to 6 months, which seems very slow to us.
Right.
But, continually kind of whittling away at where they're burning time. It's just areas that just frankly are not differentiated for them, right? They need to get them done properly and well, but it doesn't really differentiate them as an advisor. That's really what we're doing.
I mean, CCQ is my new favorite acronym. So good. It's like a magic wand. Don't
tell our marketing team that because we've been trying to switch the acronym now for a bit, but it is good. It's very powerful. What we're seeing are people so we launched this, right? In beta. So we have quite a lot of, firms who have, been, I'll say kind of playing with it. And the system today, just for those who don't know, is really set up as more of a workbench. You can just ask it whatever you want, right? Tell me this, tell me this, tell me all the people who do this. And the really interesting thing for us is what people are doing is slowly almost decomposing their business and being here are the 35 reasons I want to reach out to a client this month. It's very, very powerful, right? Yeah. It just goes back to what we were saying, right? Data that was just not really accessible or was essentially opaque is all of a sudden accessible to people that can use it.
I mean, at its core, it's so fascinating because we have always been an industry that is drowning in data that was completely unusable. And now, now it's getting we're cracking the code on it. We're unlocking it. It's so unbelievably exciting.
I totally agree. It's changing a lot. I think even as we started and as we looked in, right, we always think of kind of I'll say the custody side is being very well data oriented, and like the trading side and everything else. And even there, it's hard at times to use that data across things. And then you get to the firm level, right? Like it's been very hard. Like to your point, you're drowning in it, but you're just like, I just don't know what to do with what.
Yeah.
And data warehouses have been a big asset and help in a lot of those, but it's actually very hard to get a data warehouse kind of working the way you want it to and dynamically doing it. And I think the thing that AI has brought is it allows you to do these like kind of frankly natural language dynamic queries that then go down and are underneath, frankly, querying databases. That's exactly what's going on. But it doesn't require you to keep a DBA or
Right.
like a data warehouse expert architect walking around with you all the time. And so being able to like give that to, I'll say, a smaller firm that has great ideas and really good insights on how they want to run their book, but like no person to go do it. Super powerful.
Yeah. Okay. So you just, closed your Series B round. Congratulations. It's such a big deal. What do you hope to do with the capital that you've now brought into the company?
Yeah, we've been growing very quickly. I think we're in an environment where, because the business has been doing quite well, capital has been available to us, which is awesome. Our goal really is to, we think we're extremely early innings, right, in the AI space. And so we are really building kind of what we think of as the V2 and the V3 and, the V next the whole way through of how AI is going to really work across the firms, right? Really from kind of like the client point of view and their teams. And so we're continuing to build out a lot of these workflows. We are continuing to integrate and drive and also kind of get data and help other systems as much as we can. And that's going to continue on. We have been growing, I would say, in two big ways. We've been growing more and more in the enterprises. Just, 2 years ago when we launched, it was very often, even if it was a larger firm, it was typically one or two advisors using us. I think what's happening now is like at the firm level, there's a huge amount of value. And that's a lot of software to make all that work. And then the other thing is we are doing more and more critical things, right, for firms. And so the auditability and all of the pieces underneath that are a very big deal for us. But we really ultimately want, a firm in not too distant future to be able to use us and again, spend time with the client when they want to spend time and have the client kind of, if you will, self-serve and, use these other systems as much as possible. But yeah, we're very excited about it. It's allowed us to grow quick. Over half of our company, I think still over half of our company is research and development. We're very, my co-founder and I are, I'll say, more technical on the background. And so it's allowed us to really pile in there. The reason that we're doing that is, just kind of as we started the conversation, the reason we're doing that is really around, just the overall impact that AI is going to have, we think is still early. Like, I think we're going to look back 2 years and almost giggle at where we are now and be like, remember when we used to, do this and this and it would fill out a form for us? And, that'll be an important piece. But ultimately what's going to happen is like, there's just a lot more of the machine automatically moving for people. So yeah, super excited.
We have spent years, building our sales force and running it as cleanly as possible with workflows and all the rest of it. And I can honestly say I've never been so excited to move away from the click, 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 rabbit trail of what workflows of the past look like and the way that we're designing them with Zocks. I mean, it's like, spring has finally sprung after a long, cold winter. It's just so hard.
It's all of the things that you've wanted to happen. And frankly,
Yes.
We put such a load on the advisors to, we figured these things out, right? And then we asked the advisor to simply, in 78 short clicks and keystrokes, you will be able to, get this thing going. And so now in a good way, like when you have those, right, because we can drive them, for the advisor, it's just a win-win, right? Like it's amazing when you're doing something where, it's helpful for the firm, it's helpful for the customer, and the advisor wants to do it all at the same time. Like those are just, it's not super common that you see these times. So yeah, we're really, really just enjoying it.
So last question, you talked about how cute we will all think, 2026 is and 2028. What do you think the advisor of 2028 looks like? Like we feel very strongly and are huge bulls of the industry that the human in the loop is the winning posture. What do you think the advisor of 2028 will look like?
Yeah, I think the successful advisor of 2028 is going to be someone who frankly has leaned in. Like we see this now where, for a lot of good reasons, people want to continue doing things that they've been doing because it's a little uncomfortable to stop. But the reality is what we're seeing is that they can scale in a way that they just have not been able to scale. I think the real criteria, whether you are trying to scale, like if your business model is to have a lot more clients to grow your AUM or, other services, or you're frankly dealing with high net worth and ultra high net worth where it may be a smaller base, but you're going big. The key test is going to be like, are you anticipating your customers' needs? And then if you are, which is frankly the hard part, are you able to serve those needs, I would say, most likely with a mixture of AI and human touch, right? And I think the best people are going to do what the client wants to do, right? So you're going to see some like very high net worth people who always want to manually do things with clients. Sometimes clients can be like, I don't care, just, I'm good, let me go. And you're going to see the same thing, with earlier in career people, right? Earlier in their savings journey where they may want to have humans at some point, they may want to have AI and they're happy to do that. But I think the best people are going to crack that. How do I anticipate their needs, get ahead of them, and then essentially pull them into whatever experience they want to do? And with that, they're frankly going to be able to scale their business to like 2, 3, 4, 5x what they're doing today. It's going to be unreal. But.
I mean, that is, we both, I've got kids in college. I'm like, come on in, the water's warm. This is a great industry to be a part of for the next 10, 20 years.
It is. I think you're going to see, like, it's just such a great industry, in my view, for AI, because there's just not enough advisors today, right? Like people would like to serve more. And the reason they can't is they just cannot afford the time, right? Like they're slammed. And so I think there's so much to do that. And to your point, to like younger generation, I'll say a few of us are getting a little farther in our career and there's some opportunity early on. And especially for people who are a little bit more like, I think AI and tech native, it'll be, it's going to be a totally different world.
Well, congratulations, Mark. I mean, we're obviously so honored to be on this journey with you. Zocks is an incredible partner, and it's just, we'll do this every, maybe every 6 months. We'll just kind of take a pulse on where we are because it's rocket fuel.
Yeah, no, it is. And to your point, 6 months both flies by, but then when you look back and you realize how much has happened, it's been crazy. So yeah, just thank you, Shannon. Obviously, like your team has been a fantastic partner for us. Like, it's just been really great. It's been amazing. We're still, as we look back, it's almost unbelievable how quickly everything has moved forward in the space, but couldn't be more thankful for it.
Yeah. Brave new world. Great being with you, Mark.
Thank you for listening to the Disruption Blueprint podcast. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.rfgadvisory.com or schedule a call on our advisor resources page. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Information here may be provided in part by third-party sources. These sources are generally deemed to be reliable. However, neither our guest nor RFG Advisory